How can the 8 limbs of yoga and the Yoga Sutras apply to you even if you're not into yoga? Please do stay tuned to find out. Hi, my name is Michelle Fondin, and I'm the author of 12 published books, including this one that is live today. This one is live today on Amazon. The 8 Limbs of Yoga for Modern Times, a practical guide to the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. I am so proud of this book, this 12th book of mine. This has been a work in progress for over 10 years, and it's finally published. So do pick it up on Amazon. It is available today in Kindle and paperback, and soon on Audible. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Thank you for subscribing below. Click on the bell, scroll up to all for all notifications, and thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. So you can download a free source guide, a 9-page source guide to the 8 Limbs of Yoga. That is available on my website, and I'll put the link below. So how do the 8 Limbs of Yoga and the Yoga Sutras actually apply to you if you're not a yogi, if you don't even practice yoga, if yoga is not even on your radar? Well, that is the vast difference between yoga philosophy and actual yoga poses. See, yoga poses is only one small, teeny tiny section of what yoga is about. The word yoga means union. It comes from the Sanskrit word yuj, which means to yoke, to unite. And the 8 Limbs of Yoga is taken from the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which are taken from the Upanishads, the Rig Veda, the ancient Indian texts from thousands of years ago. This was passed down from teacher to student for thousands of years, and it is a lifestyle, it's a philosophy, it's a way of living, it's a way to reunite with your soul. Now, if you're on the spiritual journey, which I'm on the spiritual journey, I've been on the spiritual journey for 35 years. And if you haven't yet viewed how I got started with yoga, I'll put that video link right here, and you can learn the crazy way of how I got started with the yogic path when I was 18. But if you're on the spiritual path, the yogic path is actually your path, even though you might not even be aware. So the Buddha was a yogi, in case you didn't know. The Buddha was a man, a simple man, and I write about that in my book, The 8 Limbs of Yoga for Modern Times. And he was from India and went on a quest to find the ending of suffering. So the yogic path is actually the path of transcendence away from suffering and into the light. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, well, I'm not really suffering. I may have suffering moments, but I'm not really suffering. Well, suffering can be referred to anything like fear, worry, anxiety, depression, sadness, feeling disconnected from yourself and others, feeling like you have no direction or purpose in life, feeling like your life has very little meaning, or maybe you're searching for a bigger meaning in your life. So all of that falls under the umbrella of suffering. Many seekers from thousands of years ago went on a spiritual quest, a spiritual path to connect with their higher spiritual selves, to connect with God, spirit, source, in order to transcend human suffering. When you think about our day-to-day lives, there's a lot of suffering in our day-to-day lives. How many of you out there, and this is probably you, wake up in the morning and you're fine, but then your to-do list becomes really overwhelming and you get frustrated and worried, like, how am I gonna pay the bills? How am I gonna get the kids to school on time? The economy is in a downturn. How am I gonna even keep my job? And so your day goes on, and the more your day goes on, the more worried you get. You might get upset by the news or current events. You might get upset because something your spouse said to you in the morning. You might even get upset because your kids aren't behaving well, or maybe you just haven't had time to clean your home and you walk back into your home and you're really upset. So that feeling of upsetness, that feeling of discontentment is making you move away from your spiritual path. So your spiritual path is one of joy. Your spiritual path is one leading you to oneness with yourself, with your higher self, with your source, with your soul, if you will. And it's also allowing you to be connected to everyone and everything around you. It's really the pathway to unconditional love. And that's something that I write about in so many of my books, that the pathway to unconditional love is the pathway. The pathway to joy is the pathway. And in fact, that is the yogic path. That is the yogic path through the 8 limbs of yoga, which take you on a journey to discovery of yourself. Now, the 8-limbed path, which is called Ashtanga, a little bit different from what we refer to today as Ashtanga yoga. Ashtanga yoga is a specific way of doing yoga poses, but that's not what this is intended to mean. Ashtanga just means 8, the number 8. And the 8-limbed path is the philosophy that Patanjali outlined from the Yoga Sutras, from the Upanishads, from the Rig Veda, in order to help yogic practitioners or spiritual seekers. They didn't have to be practicing the physical poses of yoga necessarily, but spiritual seekers seeking a pathway away from suffering and into the light. And these 8 limbs were outlined as a lifestyle to get you there. So they were preparation to get you to enlightenment. And the preparation phase was the phase to get you to be able to sit down and meditate. And meditation is something that I teach and preach every single day. And in fact, I have an online meditation course that you can take to get your personalized mantra and learn the way of the yogi, to learn the way of the spiritual path. By practicing this meditation day in and day out, it'll automatically take you there, and it'll take you there much quicker than if you're not meditating. Patanjali and all the others that wrote about the Yoga Sutras and the 8 limbs of yoga, and the teachers in ancient India, were taking their students through these rigorous ways of being, which really aren't that hard, to be honest. Every single religion, even though yoga is not a religion, but every single religion has written about some sort of practices or ways of being, ways of living that can move you more toward unconditional love. Now, not every single one of them gets it right. A lot of times they get it very wrong. They get it wrong in the way of punishing you instead of letting you realize your own path, which I did talk about in my video, Religion versus Spirituality and What's the Difference. I'll put that link right there so you can really understand the differences between religious dogma and the spiritual path, which is the yogic path. If you are a spiritual seeker, if you're on the spiritual path, but you don't quite have a roadmap, the 8 limbs of yoga provides you with that roadmap. Now, what I write about in this brand new book is the fact that a lot of people are turning away from religion in this day and age, especially Zoomers or Generation Z, those under the age of 28, and I guess Gen Alpha, which they're pretty young at this point, and millennials especially, have turned away from traditional religions for the most part. Not all, but a lot of people have turned away from traditional religions because of that punitive nature, because of that nature of, if you don't do this, you're going to hell. If you don't do this, God doesn't love you. And they're really seeking more a spiritual path. And yet, if you don't have something to follow, something to really look at and follow, it's really hard, because then it becomes kind of a free-for-all, or what's right and what's wrong. And I don't know if I'm doing this right, or I don't even know if I'm following the right thing. So the Yoga Sutras, the 8 limbs of yoga, have been around for thousands and thousands of years, and it's a pathway to self-realization. So there are guidelines, but really it's leading you on your unique and individual path, on your spiritual path. So it's not saying you must do A, B, C, D, or something bad is going to happen to you. It's basically saying, like, here are the guidelines. People that were on the spiritual path who have come before you have moved through these guidelines, the 8 limbs of yoga, and things worked out pretty well for them, meaning they found their pathway to enlightenment. And so because these 8 limbs of yoga have been practiced by millions of people over thousands of years, over and over and over again, it creates a bona fide and true pathway to your spiritual enlightenment. And so that is why they are there. It's not saying you have to do yoga poses. If you don't do yoga poses, you're not a yogi. Yoga poses is one of the things. But what I say, even in my book, is that you don't have to do yoga per se. You could do Tai Chi, Qigong. You could do bodily movement that would lead you into the pathway toward a meditative state, because really that is the end goal here. The end goal is to get you into a meditative state where you feel absorption, where you feel oneness with the divine, and you live from that place of unconditional love. So that is the point and purpose to yoga, FYI. So the spiritual path is the yogic path, and the yogic path is the spiritual path. The two are very much integrated. They are not separate, and you don't have to follow the 8 limbs of yoga to become enlightened. It's just an easier way because it's tested and true. There's an easier way to do this, to move through the 8 limbs of yoga in order to reach enlightenment. It's just been mapped out for you. It's been dumbed down for you so that you have something to follow on your spiritual path. So I hope this was helpful for you, especially if you're not a yogi. If you are a yogi, you know exactly what I'm talking about, or maybe you don't. Maybe you've practiced yoga asana or the yoga poses, and you're like, I haven't really looked at anything else with yoga. I haven't looked at yoga philosophy. I haven't even looked at what the 8 limbs of yoga represent. I don't even think I've heard that term. So maybe you are a practicing yogi and you're just curious. And so I would say, check out my book, but also follow on this channel, because I will be outlining the 8 limbs of yoga, what they are, and exactly how to apply them into your daily living. Now, if you run a yoga teacher training program, listen up. I have a really special offer for you. If you run a yoga teacher training program, or if you know someone who runs a yoga teacher training program, if you adopt my book, and I will give you a complimentary copy if you live in the United States or the UK, because I have Audible promo codes for the United States and the UK. It's really weird. Why just those 2 countries? I don't know. But if you live in the US and you run a yoga teacher training program, I will give you a physical copy, if you so desire, to check out, to adopt with your program. And I will speak at your yoga teacher training for free over Zoom. If you're local to Southern California, I'll come and see you. So that is for yoga teacher training programs, that special offer. And I hope you enjoyed this video on applying the 8 limbs of yoga, even if you're not a yogi. I want to thank you so much for joining me here today. Thank you for subscribing to my channel below. Click on the bell, scroll up to all for all notifications. Thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. Thank you for your support of my channel. You can purchase one of my 12 published books. You can join my meditation class, or just subscribe at the link below. And I will see you in the next video.